Many of us wake up each morning feeling like we're stuck in a rut, like we're just going through the motions of life without any real purpose or direction. We check our phones, rush through our morning routine, and before we know it, we're already caught up in the chaos of the day. But what if I told you that you hold the power to break free from this cycle? What if I told you that there's a simple practice you can do each morning that will completely transform your life? It all starts with a question, my friends, a question that has the potential to ignite profound change within you. Before 10 a.m., before the hustle and bustle of the day takes over, ask yourself this: what is the greatest ideal of myself that I can be today? As you ask yourself this question, you're signaling to your subconscious mind that you're ready to break free from the limitations of your past. You're taking back control of your thoughts, your emotions, and your actions. Now, let me share something important with you. Your body might have its own ideas. It might really want that cup of coffee in the morning or feel the urge to check social media as soon as you wake up. It's like your body has its own agenda, separate from what you really want to do. But guess what? You're not just your body. You're so much more than that. You're like the captain of a ship, steering your life in the direction you want to go. You have the power to take charge and make decisions that will shape your destiny. Imagine your body as a loyal friend who sometimes gets a little carried away. It means well, but sometimes it needs a gentle reminder that you're the one in charge. So when it starts craving that cup of coffee or reaching for your phone, take a moment to pause and remind yourself who's really in control. You might feel a tug of war going on inside you, like two voices arguing over what to do next. But remember, you have the final say. You're the one who gets to call the shots and decide how you want to live your life. It's like you're the CEO of a company, making all the big decisions that will shape its future. So when your body starts acting up, it's time to step into that role and take charge. Show your body who's boss and lead with confidence and determination. Next, I want you to take a moment to become aware of your thoughts. Write down 4 thoughts that you want to stay conscious of throughout the day. Are you constantly telling yourself, "I can't," or "it's too hard"? It's time to rewrite those scripts, my friends. Once you start paying attention to your thoughts, something amazing happens. You begin to see that you're actually in charge of them. It's like you've been given a superpower, a power to control what goes on in your mind. And let me tell you, that's a game changer. Think of your thoughts as little seeds that you plant in your mind. When you're not paying attention, those seeds can grow into big, thorny weeds of negativity and self-doubt. But when you become aware of your thoughts, it's like you're putting on a pair of gardening gloves and pulling out those weeds one by one. You're saying, "I don't want these negative thoughts in my mind anymore." As you start weeding out the negative thoughts, you'll notice something incredible happening. You'll feel lighter, happier, and more hopeful about the future. It's like you're clearing away the clouds to reveal the sunshine underneath. And let me tell you, that sunshine is your ticket to a brighter, more fulfilling life. But breaking free from negativity isn't always easy. Sometimes those negative thoughts can be stubborn, like weeds that just won't go away. That's why it's important to keep practicing mindfulness every day. Just like watering a plant, you need to nourish your mind with positive thoughts and intentions. One way to do this is by replacing negative thoughts with positive ones. So instead of saying, "I can't do this," try saying, "I can do anything I set my mind to." It might feel strange at first, like trying on a new pair of shoes, but trust me, you'll get used to it. Another thing you can do is surround yourself with positive people and things. Hang out with friends who lift you up and make you feel good about yourself. Surround yourself with things that bring you joy, whether it's a favorite book, a cozy blanket, or a sunny spot in the park. Now let's talk about gratitude. This simple practice has the power to shift your entire perspective on life. Before you lay down at night, take a moment to give thanks for your life. Feel the gratitude flowing through every fiber of your being. Gratitude is like a magic key that unlocks all the goodness life has to give. When you say thank you from your heart, you're like a flower opening up to the warm sunshine. You're telling the universe, I'm ready for all the good stuff. It's like you're sending out a big, bright signal to the cosmos, saying, hey, I'm here, and I'm grateful for everything. Imagine you're standing in a beautiful garden, surrounded by flowers and trees. When you express gratitude, it's like you're reaching out your arms and embracing all the beauty around you. You're saying thank you to the sun for shining, to the rain for watering the plants, and to the earth for giving life to everything. And guess what? The universe hears you loud and clear. Think of gratitude as a magnet that attracts good things into your life. When you're grateful for what you have, you're telling the universe that you're open and ready for more blessings to come your way. It's like you're creating a positive energy field around you, drawing in all the abundance and joy that the universe has to offer. But gratitude isn't just about receiving, it's also about giving. When you say thank you, you're spreading kindness and positivity wherever you go. You're making the world a brighter, happier place for everyone around you. And the more gratitude you give, the more it comes back to you, like a beautiful circle of love and appreciation. Now, let's talk about something really special. I want you to take a little break and connect with the present moment. It's like pressing the pause button on life for just a moment. Find a comfy spot to sit down, close your eyes gently, and take a deep breath. As you sit there, let your mind wander and explore the space around you. Notice the sounds, the smells, and the sensations all around you. It's like you're tuning into a radio station, picking up on all the little details that you might have missed before. You might start to feel a sense of calmness washing over you, like a gentle wave lapping at the shore. It's like all the noise and chaos of the world just fades away, leaving behind a peaceful stillness. You see, most of our thoughts and feelings are rooted in our past experiences. But by practicing mindfulness and gratitude, we can break free from the shackles of our past and create a brighter future. You are the architect of your reality. You have the power to shape your destiny and live a life of purpose and fulfillment. So before 10 a.m. each day, take a moment to ask yourself, what is the greatest ideal of myself that I can be today? By incorporating these simple practices into your daily routine, you'll stop being a victim of yourself and start being the master of your destiny. So go forth, my friends, and create the life you've always dreamed of. The power is within you. Everything in this physical world, and then there's energy. And that energy has a consciousness, it has an awareness, and that energy is a field of information that we are an extension of, that we have access to, and that we spend so much of our life looking outside of ourselves instead of looking inside of ourselves, and that we are really conditioned to look just for particles and matter instead of energy and information. And truly, when people reach the end of their beliefs, or they're facing crisis in their life, that's the moment they start to turn within and start to ask the bigger questions. And if you were astute enough to look at this in moments of contemplation, if you were wanting to hide God anywhere, it would be a good place to hide. It would be within the human being, because everybody's looking outside of themselves, and we look for reasons to change and regulate our emotional states. You know, we think that things and people and external things will really fulfill emotions that we're trying to change within us, and that truly when we start to really investigate who we are and look to see how we do that and demystify it, I think once we start to demystify it, it can become a skill. And so Einstein was a super cool guy because he spent a lot of time inward, and at 12 years old he asked himself this simple question: if I ride my bicycle at the speed of light and I turn my lamp on, I turn my headlight on, will it go on? So he thought about that question every single day of his life, every day of his life. He would go out in a boat on a lake as a child and lay on his back in the boat and look up at the sky and think about this. And he was building models of understanding. He was working his best to be able to figure out how light and energy were related. He did it for 10 years. He was possessed by the concept. And finally, he was working as a third-rate clerk in a Swiss patent office, and he was watching this man fix the roof across the way. and he just paused for a moment, and he was watching him. And the moment he was watching him, he got this incredible vision, and he understood how light and energy were related. It was a very abstract vision, and it was so abstract and so dimensional that he had to go back to school to learn the mathematics to be able to explain what he saw. And his wife, his first wife, was an amazing scientist, and she helped him with a lot of the mathematics. And so when Einstein began to figure it out, he narrowed it down to that one simple equation that E equals mc squared, energy and matter related, and the currency converter is the speed of light. And so it became very interesting because when Einstein published his papers on relativity, he didn't say like, hey, this person said this and this person said this, and I'm going to footnote this person. He just said, ladies and gentlemen, this is how it is. And it rocked the scientific community because he didn't really need anybody else as a reference. He had a discovery, and his discovery was so unique, and his brain really was wired for the understanding of light. And light was the ceiling of this reality. And so Einstein and Planck started doing these really interesting experiments where they were taking energy and they were putting energetic impulses into metals. And what they were looking to see is if electrons behave the same way as the very large. In other words, when an apple falls from the tree, it falls in a very specific way. It falls towards the center. It falls towards the larger body. So he reasoned, well, if we disturb electrons, and him and Planck were doing these experiments, if we disturb these electrons, then they should fall just like an apple falling from the tree towards the nucleus. It should be predictable, just like it's predictable in Newtonian physics and classical physics. Well, when they started disturbing the electrons, something very unusual happened. The electron gained energy, then it lost energy, and it gained energy, and it lost energy, and it gained energy, and it lost energy. And instead of it falling like a ball rolling down a hill, it was like a ball rolling down steps. All of a sudden, they became very aware that the subatomic world, the very tiny, didn't behave like the very large world. And so then they started to look for the electron. They started to try to measure it, and everywhere they looked for it, it appeared. And when they turned their back on it, and they no longer looked to measure it, it went from a particle that collapsed, called collapsing the wave function, back into energy. Now, this was a revolutionary moment because this meant that subjective mind, your mind has an effect on the objective world. That mind and matter are somehow correlated. And truly, when people reach the end of their beliefs or they're facing crisis in their life, that's the moment they start to turn within and start to ask the bigger questions. And if you were astute enough to look at this in moments of contemplation, if you were wanting to hide God anywhere, it would be a good place to hide. It would be within the human being because everybody's looking outside of themselves, and we look for reasons to change and regulate our emotional states. We think that things and people and external things will really fulfill emotions that we're trying to change within us. And that truly, when we start to really investigate who we are and look to see how we do that and demystify it, I think once we start to demystify it, it can become a skill. And so Einstein was a super cool guy because he spent a lot of time inward, and at 12 years old, he asked himself this simple question: if I ride my bicycle at the speed of light, and I turn my lamp on, I turn my headlight on, will it go on? So he thought about that question every single day of his life, every day of his life. He would go out in a boat on a lake as a child and lay on his back in the boat and look up at the sky and think about this. And he was building models of understanding. He was working his best to be able to figure out how light and energy were related. He did it for 10 years. He was possessed by the concept. And finally, he was working as a third-rate clerk in a Swiss patent office, and he was watching this man fix the roof across the way. And he just paused for a moment, and he was watching him. And the moment he was watching him, he got this incredible vision, and he understood how light and energy were related. It was a very abstract vision. And it was so abstract and so dimensional that he had to go back to school to learn the mathematics to be able to explain what he saw. And his first wife, was an amazing scientist, and she helped him with a lot of the mathematics. And so when Einstein began to figure it out, he narrowed it down to that one simple equation that E equals mc squared, energy and matter related, and the currency converter is the speed of light. And so it became very interesting because when Einstein published his papers on relativity, he didn't say like, hey, this person said this and this person said this, and I'm going to footnote this person. He just said, ladies and gentlemen, this is how it is. And it rocked the scientific community because he didn't really need anybody else as a reference. He had a discovery, and his discovery was so unique, and his brain really was wired for the understanding of light. And light was the ceiling of this reality. And so Einstein and Planck started doing these really interesting experiments where they were taking energy and they were putting energetic impulses into metals. And what they were looking to see is if electrons behave the same way as the very large. In other words, when an apple falls from the tree, it falls in a very specific way. It falls towards the center. It falls towards the larger body. So he reasoned, well, if we disturb electrons, and him and Planck were doing these experiments, if we disturb these electrons, then they should fall just like an apple falling from the tree towards the nucleus. It should be predictable, just like it's predictable in Newtonian physics and classical physics. Well, when they started disturbing the electrons, something very unusual happened. The electron gained energy, then it lost energy. And it gained energy, and it lost energy. And it gained energy, and it lost energy. And instead of it falling like a ball rolling down a hill, it was like a ball rolling down steps. All of a sudden, they became very aware that the subatomic world, the very tiny, didn't behave like the very large world. And so then they started to look for the electron. They started to try to measure it. And everywhere they looked for it, it appeared. And when they turned their back on it and they no longer looked to measure it, it went from a particle that collapsed, called collapsing the wave function, back into energy. Now, this was a revolutionary moment because this meant that subjective mind, your mind has an effect on the objective world. That mind and matter are somehow correlated. And so this birth of quantum physics came along. And this quantum physics experiment say that you cannot do a quantum physics experiment without an observer around. In other words, a mind always has to be present because it will influence the outcome. You with me? So now that invisible field of spirit, that invisible field of information and energy, somehow you as an individual can influence the nature of reality with your mind. The same experiences produce the same emotions. Those same emotions tend to influence the way we think. And our biology, our neurocircuitry, our neurochemistry, our hormones, and even our gene expression is equal to how we think, how we act, and how we feel. And how you think, how you act, and how you feel is called your personality. And your personality creates your personal reality. That's it. So then it makes sense then, if you want to create a new personal reality, a new life, you're going to have to change your personality. And you've got to start thinking about what you've been thinking about and change it. You've got to become aware of your unconscious habits and behaviors, even how you speak. Then you have to look at the emotions that you live by every single day and decide, do these emotions belong in my future? So many people try to create a new life as the same person. In order to create a new personal reality, you've got to change your personality. So the principle in neuroscience says that nerve cells that fire together, wire together, thinking the same way, making the same choices, demonstrating the same actions, creating the same experiences that stamp the same networks of neurons into the same patterns, all for the familiar feeling called you. And you do that for 10 years in a row, you're going to hardwire your brain into a very finite signature because you're firing and wiring that way. And that box in the brain, that becomes our personality, becomes our identity. And by the time we're 35 years old, for the most part, we've done something so many times that the body now knows how to do it as well as the mind. And that's a habit. So we have these unconscious programs of behaviors, automatic habits, redundant emotional reactions, hardwired beliefs, perceptions, attitudes that function just like a computer program. You press go and it runs automatically. So then when it comes time to change, thinking positively is going to do nothing because your body has been conditioned for the most part into a program in the past. So the thought never makes it to the body because the body's on a different program. So how do we begin to influence the body so that the thought actually produces some type of change? So think about it. If you think an unhappy thought, you're going to feel unhappy. If you think you're a failure, you're going to feel like a failure. Once you feel like a failure, you're going to think you're a failure. And people get caught in these loops of thinking and feeling and feeling and thinking. And that redundancy is a conditioning process because all you need is an image or a picture or a thought and a feeling, a response, stimulus response. And so the people tend to condition their brain and body into the past. And so when it comes time to change, you got to leave that familiar territory. And any choice that you make, if you said, hey, I'm going to eat a better diet, I'm going to wake up early and work out, I'm going to do meditation, the moment you decide to do something differently, get ready because it's going to feel uncomfortable. It's going to feel unfamiliar. There's going to be some uncertainty. You're not going to be able to predict the next moment. That means you've left your known biology and you're stepping into the unknown. Now, theoretically, that sounds great, but if the body has been conditioned into a familiar feeling, it's in the known. The moment you take it outside the familiarity, it wants to go back to where it's comfortable. So the body starts influencing the mind. And this is where people say, I want you to start your diet tomorrow. Oh, why don't you start working out this evening? You're really never going to change. You're too tired. You have a headache. This doesn't feel right. And this is where people talk themselves out of it. Because if they respond to that thought leads to the same choice, which leads to the same behavior, creates the same experience, produces the same feeling, and then they say, this feels right. No, that feels familiar. So going from one state of mind and body to another state of mind and body, you gotta cross a river. And the hardest part about change is not making the same choice as you did the day before. Now, once people understand that they're going to be uncomfortable, then the question is, what thoughts do you want to fire and wire in your brain? What behaviors will you demonstrate in one day? And the act of closing your eyes and rehearsing who you're going to be when you open your eyes begins to install neurological hardware in your brain to look like you've already done it. Now, intention is a vision, a potential that already exists in the quantum field that you get to select. And when you ask yourself a question like, what would it be like to be healthy? What would it be like to be wealthy? What would it be like to be free or to be in love? The moment you ask that creative question, a part of your brain called the frontal lobe turns on. That's the crowning achievement of the human being. Once that area of the brain turns on, it's like a great symphony leader. It looks out of the landscape of the entire brain and it begins to randomly select different networks of neurons that are connected to the things you've learned in your life or the experiences you've had. And it begins to seamlessly paste them together to create an ideal, a vision, or an internal representation. That is a potential experience that's awaiting you. But it's not enough to just have the mind involved. Thoughts are the language of the brain and feelings are the language of the body. And how you think and how you feel creates a state of being. Once you can begin to emotionally embrace that future reality before it's made manifest, when you combine that clear intention with an elevated emotion, the freedom, the joy, the inspiration, the genuine love that you feel or gratitude from that experience, the moment you do that, your body as the unconscious mind begins to believe it's living in that future reality in the present moment. Now you're moving into a new state of being, into a new personality, and a new personality creates a new personal reality. The research that we've done shows that when we teach people how to regulate their internal states, to begin to create more coherence in their brain, and to generate elevated emotions like joy and gratitude and inspiration, that not only does the brain become coherent, but so does the heart. And when the brain is coherent, the heart is coherent. When the heart is coherent, the brain is coherent. And so why don't we live by these states on a daily basis? primarily because the majority of the time that we live in our waking state of consciousness, 70% of the time, you and I are living by the hormones of stress. And living in stress is living in survival. And when you're living in survival, the very chemicals of survival cause you to function as materialist, defining your reality with your senses. You pay attention to objects and things and people. You begin to believe that your outer world is more real than your inner world. And the side effect of this over time begins to cause us to feel separate from possibility. Why? Because when you're threatened by some predator or some danger in your life, it's not a time to go in. It's not a time to trust the unknown. It's not a time to open your heart and feel love. It's not a time to communicate. It's not a time to create. It's not a time to learn. It's a time to survive. So then, in order for us to create, we have to lay down the very thing we used our whole life to get what we want for something greater to occur. And most importantly, we want you to understand when you're in the creative state and when you're not. And if you were to take a little time every day and apply some of the principles in changing beliefs and perceptions about yourself and your life, and what is a belief other than a thought you keep thinking over and over again? And all beliefs are based on past experiences. And in order for you to change a belief or perception about yourself and your life, you have to make a decision with such firm intention that the amplitude of that decision carries a level of energy that's greater than the hardwired programs in your brain and the emotional conditioning in your body, and your body literally has to respond to a new mind. And when the choice becomes an experience that you never forget, that's the moment the past biologically no longer exists in you. People use the word victim so much, and I don't really think we spend a lot of time really unraveling the idea. But if I said to you, Jay, how are you doing today? And you said, well, I'm really upset because of this person or this circumstance or this condition in my life, then what we're saying, this is not conscious, this is an unconscious program. What we're saying is somebody out there is actually controlling the way I'm feeling and the way that I'm thinking. I had some intense experiences with Kundalini energy. It felt like I was being plugged into a power socket, making me aware of every part of my body. We often use our whole lives to try to make something great happen, and it's a real paradox. When you start to change and grow, you honor your free will. So if someone thinks they can just wait for a luxury car to show up, that's not how it works. To create real wealth, you need to be in a new state of being. Just like gold makes gold, you can't create gold from lead. Our job is to transform our negative emotions, like anger, fear, and anxiety, into positive energy. Right on the other side of our pain is freedom, and right after our lack is abundance. Fear transforms into courage, and it's all the same energy, just stuck in our bodies. When we change that energy, we can start to create our future. When you reach a higher state of being, where you're expanded and in love with life, you can't go back to who you were before. If you practice this state daily, it will become familiar. If you're aiming for wealth, you can't think in terms of lack, because a wealthy person doesn't do that. You can't feel unworthy or like there's not enough if you want to be wealthy. You need to let go of those old beliefs and move into a new state of being. Once you're in that state, you can't just wait for things to happen. You need to make choices from this new place. Trust the unknown. If you hesitate, you doubt your creation and go back to your old ways. The miraculous happens when you step out of your comfort zone from your new, unlimited self. You'll see amazing results and be glad you took the leap. To make these changes, you need to focus on your brain and body. There are two key times when your subconscious mind is most open: when you wake up in the morning and when you go to bed at night. In the morning, as you wake up, your brain moves from deep sleep waves, delta, to lighter waves, theta and alpha, and then to active thinking waves, beta. At night, the process reverses. When you wake up and see light, your brain starts making serotonin, which helps you stay alert. As it gets darker, serotonin changes into melatonin, which helps you sleep. Serotonin gets your brain into beta waves, making you more aware of the outer world. During meditation, when you close your eyes and block out light, your brain shifts to alpha and then theta waves. This state helps you focus on your inner world. If you wake up early, your brain might be in theta or alpha waves, which are great for subconscious work. If you go to bed late, you might stay in alpha waves, which can boost creativity. To change your brain patterns, you need to move from beta to alpha and then to theta. Theta is a state where your body sleeps, but your mind stays awake, making it easier to change quickly. If you go too far, you'll reach delta waves, which are deep sleep. To meditate effectively, avoid doing it in bed to prevent slipping into delta too soon. When your brain is in the right state, you'll see incredible changes. The body relaxes and the nervous system activates. Most of our thoughts and feelings come from past experiences and memories. Our brain reflects what we know and has a record of everything we've learned.